Well, hi there. Okay, now this video is going to be, because a lot of people have requested it, what they've done is they've done owl eye scarves, for example, or a blanket, and then they say, how can I get my hat to match? It looks different in the round. Okay, so in the round, and I've got a hat here that has an owl eye brim, so in the round, this is how owl eye looks. It's like that in the round. It's a nice stitch too, but it's not going to look the same as those people who are doing it in a flat panel. So what I'm doing here is I'm doing a hat in the round, but I'm doing it as a flat panel. And by doing it that way, I'm getting the owl eye stitch looking like it looks when it's a flat panel. And this is how it looks when it's a flat panel. It looks kind of interesting in this color yarn, doesn't it? I'll go around. You can see the stitch a little more in different colors. Okay, and so by doing it as a flat panel, I had to come up with a really good way of having the peg that I turn around on blending in. And so I'm going to show you how I did that. And it took me a long time to get one that worked and blended in. So here's where it blends in. And you can't really tell very much. Okay, it's right here. This is the one that's blending in right there. So if you really look at it, you can see it's a slightly different stitch, but it's blending right in. So that can be the back, but because it blends in so good, if you accidentally wore it, you wouldn't notice it really, depending on your yarn. Okay, so that hat is going to be solid owl eye, and all I did was cast on, and I went right into the owl eye pattern that I'm using. So I'm going to take you to the video that I use to cast on, and it's my crochet chain cast on. You might already know how to do that, but I'm going to edit the video right now of how to cast on, and we'll go right into the stitch. Now, if you use the cast on that I'm going to show you and go right into the stitch, you'll be able to do that. If you deviate and use a different cast on, I can't guarantee that that will work. You might have to do a row of U-wrap and a row of purl, but especially if it's an E-wrap cast on or anything that's a twisted stitch. But if you do the cast on I'm showing you and then do owl eye, it doesn't curl when it's done as a flat panel. When I do it in the round, it doesn't for me, but because it might for some others, I always put in a couple rows of U-knit and purl, but I'm not going to because I don't do that with a flat panel. A flat panel is more balanced when the stitch is going both ways, and so your brim is going to look just like this when you're done. So I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to let it be like that. I love the way it's looking. So I'm going to take you to that cast on and go right into the stitch. But if you want to deviate your cast on, you might have to do a row of U-knit and a row of purl, just so you know. Okay, so we'll do that. But first, I'll tell you the loom I'm using. And this is a 42 peg, 5/8 inch, I already said 42 peg loom. And it's a Cindywood loom. Okay, so it's one of the wider gauge, but it's not a 3/4. It's a 5/8 inch. And it's a small lady size hat here that I'm going to make. The yarn I'm using is I love this chunky yarn from Hobby Lobby. And sure is a good price. The color is Saturn's Rings. Okay, and apparently this is the color of Saturn's Rings. There you go. Okay. So I'll take you now, and the loom hook. This loom hook isn't sold anymore. It's from We Have a Handle on this, and their loom hooks come up and have a nice slant, but they don't make them anymore. But you can get one that's very, very similar. It just comes up a little straighter here, and that's from Steve Axelrod. And you can get that in my group, actually, or you can get it on Etsy. Okay? So we'll just take you to the video and then we'll get started and I'll show you how to do this. So we'll see you in a bit. The yarn I'm using for this is Atlantis Estelle Atlantis, and the color is Gleam. And it's a combination of yellows and creams and light taupe and copper and bronze and lots of those colors in it. And it's a bulky. And it's, I guess it's pretty close to Charisma width to give you an idea of how big a bulky it is. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is a chain cast on. So what I do is I just make a slip knot. And any way you make a slip knot's fine. It just goes on the first peg like that. And we take the loom hook, put it inside the loop, and pick up a yarn. And so that we have a loop of yarn here. I'm just going to keep this tight over here. And then I'm going to come over behind the next peg, put the working yarn through, and snug it up. Behind, working yarn through, snug it up. Behind, whoop, behind, and we caught two pegs, snug it up. Behind, snug it up. And we just do that all the way around the loom. And that's a chain cast on. It's one of the crochet cast-ons. Works really good. You can use a crochet hook to do this if you want. I find it a lot easier just to do with my hands, but if you're in a very tiny gauge loom, you might really need a hook to get your fingers in between the pegs. This cast-on can be used on any size of loom with the appropriate yarn for that gauge. I use this cast on with most of my pieces because I like the look of it. I do use other ones from time to time just because I think they go nicer with the work, but this one is nice. You don't have to worry about tightening any loops. It has a really nice appearance. And I just kind of do this weird thing when I do it because that helps me to get the right tension. But you can do it in one smooth motion too. Just the way I like to do the chain cast on. Get some more yarn out of here. Okay. Whoop, caught this in it. There we go. And then I just plop it on the last peg. And then you notice there's a space here. You could also pop it on there, but I find it makes this really thick here. So what I've started doing is just ending right here when I do this cast on, and then just knit it off. And then we're just going to come over here and knit this to secure it. And then what I do, because there's only one piece of yarn coming here and it's thicker in here, is I take this loop that I had left and put it over here, and then I just knit it over. And that makes it blend in better. At least that's what I think. And also this is partially secured already, so it will stay tighter and not loosen up on you now, which sometimes happens. Okay, now that you've cast on, and when you cast on, you're going to want to start on this peg, but I'm going to start you on this peg because this peg's going to start the same as it would be if I started you on this peg, and because I'm already into the pattern, this peg isn't going to work that way. So pretend this is your first peg you're going to use here, and you're going to come over it in a U-wrap. You're going to knit it off. You're going to come from behind and go over it and the next peg. So I'll call this peg 1, this peg 2, and knit it off. And then you're going to come to the next peg, go over it, and knit it off. And the next peg, and go over it, and knit it off. And then you're going to do that all around the loom. Okay, if you need to see more videos on owl eye, I have plenty on my channel, and you can look at my stitch video. This one's to show you the hat, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining the stitch to you, okay? Just go over 1 and 2 and knit it off, okay? And keep going around the loom. And so we're going to go all the way around the loom till we get close to this peg. I'm going to tell you right now, you might want to mark the 2 pegs on either side, because we're going to treat everybody like we do owl eye stitch in a flat panel, except for the middle peg and this peg and this peg. So these 3 pegs will be treated differently. Okay? I'm not going to, because my white peg is marked. You might have all your pegs the same color, so you might need to mark this peg, but these 3 pegs are going to be treated differently. Okay, so I want you to, we'll catch up just before we get to these 3 pegs. Okay, so I will see you in a bit. Okay, so we're back, and I'm just going to go around here and keep going. And then when we get to this peg right there, so I'm going to keep going. Okay, now we're at that peg, so we're going to go over this one and over this one, and that's it. We're only going to put 1 stitch on this peg. Then we're going to come over to the middle peg and do an E-wrap on it. So we're going to come from the back and in front, and we're going to knit that off in an E-wrap, keeping it pretty tight actually. Okay, and we're going to come back over it in a U-wrap. So we're going to go in front of it and come over it and knit it. And then we're going to knit this peg. And then we're going to put a 2nd stitch on this peg. So coming back, it gets 2 stitches, but going towards the white peg, only 1 stitch. And the reason for the 1 stitch is if you have 2 stitches there after missing it, because you're going to go around twice in the row, you're going to have a hole there. So just do the 1 stitch going there, but the 2 coming back, okay? Then we're going to do owl eye this way. So see, we're doing it as a flat panel. We're going back the other way. And we're going to go all around the loom, doing owl eye stitch. Okay, until we get close to these pegs again, and I'll show you that end. Okay, so we will see you there in a bit. Okay, so now we're getting close up here, so I'm going to keep doing the owl eye till I get up to that peg, and now I'm going to go over these 2 pegs, and I'm just going to put the 1 stitch on here, and then I'm going to go over here and do an E-wrap, knit it off, come back over in front, and knit these 2 over, and then just keep going. Okay, now you can slow that down and you can replay that, but that's what you're going to keep doing it this way, going all the way around, doing what I showed you there to come back around, and you're going to go back and forth until you get long enough. Okay, so let's take a look and see where we're at. So we've got a little bit longer. So here's owl eye stitch, and as you can see, it's looking just like a flat panel, and it's not looking like it does in the round right here. It's looking like a flat panel. So this will match your flat panel scarf or your baby blanket or your adult blanket or whatever the heck you're making that is an owl eye that you want it to have a hat to match. That's all there is to it. And we'll look at, this is where we're making the other stitch. It looks a little bit different. And when you're done, you'll stretch it out and look even more blended in. See? Just blends right in. So that's a really good way that I found. Okay. Now if you look at it, it looks a little bigger here and smaller here, and that's because this is where we've been doing the round, so we're bigger here, and then we're going to come around here, and that will even out. So you're going to keep going till you get this long enough, And then you'll just do a couple rows of E-wrap and do a bind off. So I'm going to keep knitting till it's long enough. And you know how to do this now, and you'll be able to match everything. And that should make a lot of you happy that have been asking for that for so long. Okay, so I've got a lot further around, and you can see what it's looking like. And it looks really nice on this side too. And it will match those flat panels done in the same yarn with the same gauge. It'll look just the same because I did it as a flat panel. And just so you can see what an owl eye hat looks like, doing it completely as a round version, you can see that the stitch is quite different. There we go. See if I can get them side by side here. You can see the stitch is quite different. So if you wanted to do just an owl eye in the round, you could match it with a scarf. You just do the scarf in the round. And then if you do this one, you can match it with any flat panel project that you made. So all I have to do now, because I've got the length that I want, is I'm going to do a couple rows of E-wrap, and then I'm going to do a reduced bind off. So I'm just going to take you to the reduced bind off video that I have. You can do just the one row of owl eye or the one row of E-wrap that it says in the video, or you could do two. The important thing is to keep it nice and loose, because you want to be able to put one of the loops from a peg over onto another peg, and it to be loose enough to move over for you. Okay, so or if you want to, you can just do a bind off right from the end of owl eye as well, if you don't want to do a reduced bind off. But however you want to do it, and we will catch up at the end. So we will see you in a bit. Okay, so my hat is done, and I'm showing you, this is where we joined it and changed direction right in here. So the stitch is a bit different, but it blends in, and when you're wearing it and you stretch it, it completely blends in. You can't tell at all. And here's the rest of the hat, and it looks just like the flat panels. So it will match anything you do, and it's a nice hat, nice tight hat, so it's good for donations or whoever you want, your family, your friends, male or female. Hat would work for anybody. And it's got the flat top because we did the reduced bind off. Okay, so there it is, and I hope you enjoyed the video. And oh yes, always remember to stretch out the stitches when you're done, so you just set them. So then when you wear it, it will always look the same. Okay, so until next time, bye.